I'm John Strohmeyer, and this is the 5-Star Counsel Podcast. The market for legal services is shifting, and lawyers who don't adapt will be left behind. This podcast gives you a competitive edge in today's market by sharing the client service lessons you probably didn't learn in law school or in law practice. Let's start the show. Welcome back to the 5-Star Counsel Podcast. I'm John Strohmeyer, and today we're talking with Erin Levine, a certified family law specialist who's practicing in East Bay, California. Now, she's a multi-award winning attorney who's won things such as the James I. Keene Memorial Award for Excellence in ELawyering and been a member of the 2019 Fast Case 50. Today, we're going to be talking with her about developing products for our clients. Why? Well, she's the founder and creator of Hello Divorce, an online service that helps clients get their divorce done by themselves with little to no interaction with an attorney. There's a lot to this, and I'm glad you're here. Before we get to it, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsor, Smith AI. Hey, 5-Star listeners. Before we start, I want to tell you about our amazing sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a virtual receptionist service for small businesses with a specialty in working with solo and small law firms. I signed up with them within weeks of starting my firm because they are affordable for even the smallest solo practice. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in Spanish or English, screen and schedule new leads, and can even take payments. And now they're answering calls 24 hours a day. So even when you're asleep, they're still working. Even beyond the phone, they've got live agents and chatbots ready to capture leads on your website, by text, and by Facebook Messenger. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front line so you can work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $70 a month for calls and $100 a month for chats. Smith AI is offering a free trial, and our podcast listeners get an extra $100 discount code with promo code 5-STAR. That's FIVESTAR. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI. Erin Levine, current James I. Keene Memorial Award for Excellence in E-Lawyering winner at the last conference I got to go to in the before times. It's great to have you. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. That's funny that you mentioned that e-lawyering. It was such a big deal a few months ago, and now I don't know anyone who's not e-lawyering.
It's crazy. I've actually been on the road for the last week and a half, e-lawyering as though I were back at home. And the only difference my clients have seen is I happen to be in a place with terrible cell service. So I've been forcing them into Zoom. But other than that, nobody's really noticed.
It feels really good to be location unspecific, doesn't it?
Location independent is how I've always referred to it. But it's really nice. I can do just about everything I'd ever wanted to as a lawyer. And nobody cares where I am. I've had 5 new client calls in the last 24 hours on Zoom. We've got 2 hearings in the next 2 weeks that I'm not going to show up for physically, but the courts have adapted to it, which saves my time driving in, saves my time parking. So many things that just didn't matter before are, call it, being flushed by the wayside. Like nobody's really upset that we're not in court for at least the things that I do that are uncontested.
Well, the things that my firm does too, which is family law, consumers just seem to be so much happier. And my lawyers are too. So I really hope these changes stick. I hope that the courts don't rush to reopen. But I guess that's another topic for another podcast.
It is. When I reached out to you, what I wanted to talk to you about was the fact that you have built out Hello Divorce as a way for people in California to get divorced on a subscription model, possibly without any direct lawyer involvement. And I want you to explain more about that with the idea of, well, client service is how do we deliver things to our customers, and you're finding a new and better way to deliver legal knowledge to clients in a way that makes it easier for you, makes it easier for them, and basically works all the way around.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. It's been about 3 years now since conception, design. We did a couple of sprints where we surveyed consumers to get a good sense of what they want and need, all the way through to building a minimal viable product, and then ultimately the iteration that we have today, which is the Divorce Navigator. that works well with Documate, the form generating software, and a combination of do-it-yourself type products with access to legal help and lawyers if and when the client needs it. What we knew going into this is that about 85% of family law cases have at least one self-represented party, usually because they don't want to or can't afford a traditional full representation lawyer. And so we knew that we would certainly want to be able to help and reach out to them, provide them meaningful, quality products and services that are affordable. But we also wanted to target the people that would ordinarily be walking into our law firm. How could we show and convince them that they might not need a lawyer on retainer? And so it's been a really interesting journey, to say the least.
Oh, there's so much to dig into there. I'm going to start with, you asked consumers, your potential clients, what they wanted. I'm going to guess the first questions were, well, how do you spend less? Because I've seen statistics that it's like $25,000 to $30,000 average cost of a divorce, which is mind blowing. Like, I mean, if I had to come out of pocket for that right now, not that I'm looking for divorce, that's an amazing expense that almost nobody has ready to go. So beyond a lower cost, what sort of things did you learn from asking your clients or potential clients about what they wanted?
It was very interesting. We also surveyed people who had hired our law firm and had been through divorce and what to see what they would have wanted us to do differently. So one of the first things we learned is that while technology is very important to them, it certainly wasn't their central need when it came to something as emotional and long of a process as divorce. So we learned really early on that for most people, having an awesome technology setup wasn't going to be enough, that they were really hoping to find a way to connect with a human. And in some cases, maybe not even connect with that human, that legal expert, but knowing that that legal expert is there in case they needed it is what really people wanted to have.
Having somebody who's been there and done it before, even when it's as simple, for me, I get it all the time as an estate planner, or plan simple. And that's right.
Right.
99% of my plans are leave it to my spouse, otherwise leave it to my kids. But it's the details of applying that to individual lives. And all I'm doing is essentially drafting documents for people to make sure they fit in. You've got to shoehorn two competing people into a system in California that isn't designed to be client friendly.
Right. Yeah. If I were to do it over again, I certainly wouldn't have picked a lawsuit type action. It would have been much more transactional focused. But divorce law is what I know. I'm a certified family law specialist. It's what I'm good at. So it made sense for me to start there. And I think because of that, we really had to think about this from a holistic standpoint, not just what tech can we use, but what can we do to minimize the conflict between spouses, to actually build trust in people that are separating such that they come together and ultimately sign an agreement. And I really had to take off my lawyer hat for that. That was very challenging. The other thing that we did was we found out that most people, while they're willing to coordinate with their spouse in divorce, surprise, surprise, they don't want to collaborate. They don't want to be working on forms together. And a lot of the DIY type services that are out there require both parties to participate. And the thing is, and all of us can understand this in our own lives, there's usually a doer spouse, right? That spouse is not necessarily the one who wants a divorce, but it's the spouse who paid the bills and managed the household finances and just kind of got things done. Well, the same thing happens in divorce. And so we had to set up a system where one party could do the majority of the legwork, but make it transparent enough so the other party understands what's happening and doesn't jump to lawyering up or doing something irrational that will throw the whole process off.
That's really interesting because when you started saying build trust, I was thinking, well, how do you have a system where presumably only one of them is signing up. I saw in the options, you don't have to have both people sign up to move forward, but it's clear enough that the non-mover spouse can see what's happening, and you haven't hidden secret language in there that says, well, forget about what's up there, I actually get 90%.
Right.
What was that like the first few iterations? What were the stumbling blocks on that?
It's funny because when we talk about stumbling blocks, of course, the first place my mind goes to is less about the product and more about the initial stumbling blocks that we had to market the product and get the consumer to trust us. As far as the product goes, I have to say that people, for example, that were paying $99 a month definitely got more of a $10,000 divorce the first, 10 to 20 people that used our system, because we really wanted to handhold and understand where the pain points are, where the friction is, what are we doing wrong, lots of surveying, lots of connecting with people along the way. But that was really helpful. Definitely a worthwhile investment. And what we learned early on is by separating the agreement, the negotiation and agreement piece out, and leaving that to the end, and starting with the first two steps, which in most states are a petition type document and financial disclosures, that's how we were able to build trust. Because, we've gotten through 2 of the 3 steps without any fighting and without having to go to court. That's what I mean about building this trust. Okay, now we can do step 3. We've also learned that Hello Divorce is not out to screw me. They're here to try to help facilitate an agreement. They've sent us emails. They've sent us blog posts about how we can do this in an amicable way, how we can assert our rights without screwing over the other spouse, and so on and so forth. So it sort of goes back to that whole process. We learned really early on that putting a product out there and pressing go is, no matter how fabulous that product is, isn't going to do anything for the consumer. You have to find a way to support them without spending money that makes it a meaningful experience for them and more passive income for you.
Interesting. Yeah. So when you started building that trust, that's what I was really thinking about, of you're getting them to do a few steps to see that it works, even though there's not the lawyer involved. And so you're getting buy-in from them first.
Right.
And then what I also heard was they got the $10,000 divorce the first few times. And that was, you had a product that probably worked, but it didn't work as well as you wanted to. So it was a matter of you had to go back and invest more time and refine it.
Right. So we had to learn where the pain points are and how to give them more support. So one big example is a lot of people who have a full agreement or expect to have a full agreement hate the idea of disclosing finances. And yet in most states, you have to. It's just the law. And so they get really tripped up at that point. They expected that by disclosing everything, this now meant that their spouse was going to change their position, things were going to get messy. They were angry that we didn't have a way around it. And so we learned at that point, hey, we need to offer some videos, maybe a couple articles that will help people to understand why this is necessary and hopefully why it won't screw everything up. And just by investing a little bit of time, maybe 3-4 hours of content, it really changed that part of the process. It is very rare now that we have someone that comes to us and says, I'm not going to disclose finances.
Really?
Or, yeah. Now, I mean, I will say, this is the people that are coming to Hello Divorce are people that want an agreement or already have an agreement. We are not getting the messy, contested cases that you see in the media or with celebrities, right? But by the same token, these cases are not that different from the cases that came into my law firm that ultimately have been litigated. Not because these are bad people, but because of the fear that sometimes is associated with lawyering up. Or when the other lawyer on the other side plays games or has these unreasonable, tactics, that's where the emotions start to get really heated. And as you know, with litigation, one thing can lead to another. And before you know it, you're preparing for $100,000 trial.
Right. I mean, it sounds to me like you're helping clients with the membership these are clients who probably wouldn't have been able to afford what they got. Now they're getting something that takes care of their issues at a price they can they can afford. They're getting things done, and it doesn't require the sand in the gears of lawyers getting involved.
Right. And yet lawyers are here. And it's also designed by a lawyer, right? I don't think that a non-lawyer could design something like this. Not because they're not smart. They're probably a million times smarter than me when it comes to business. But because we lawyers know our consumer. We've been doing this forever. We know the law, and we know our consumer, and we know what most of them need. And so that is our superpower. That's why we get to do things like this and compete with the big guys.
Right. And it's exactly right. The thought that the lawyers are going to be replaced by robots anytime soon, the robots, even when they get programmed by us, you've programmed a couple robots already. The robots still don't have that human connection that we know clients are looking for, and which you said is still ultimately important. But it's also knowing what the real options are for people.
I did not know how people would use our Divorce Navigator. That's our web application that takes people through divorce start to finish. I was hoping that what people would do is, as they move through the steps, if they had the money, they would purchase 30 minutes or an hour with a lawyer to go over the paperwork and maybe seek a little bit of advice around negotiation. And that's exactly what people have done. So the product is $99 a month, but the average spend at Hello Divorce is $1,500 to $1,600.
Really?
So people are not going 15 months with a DIY membership. Most people are averaging in California 6 to 7 months. So the rest of that money is spent on lawyers. And most people can come up with at least, 30 minutes of lawyer time. It doesn't necessarily mean it's their money. Sometimes you're borrowing from someone or you're putting it on a credit card. We are soon offering financing options, which is really exciting too. But most people have been able to come up with that if they need it. It's not that our lawyering is that much less expensive. It's very comparable to other law firms. We have been able to take down the expense, like many of your listeners, in that everything is automated from the fee agreement to the scheduling to the payment. But it's still expensive, right? When you ultimately want to speak with a lawyer, like, we have an expertise that we need to be paid for. But people are a lot happier to pay for that if they were able to do their forms for $99 or $200.
Right, because our role as experts doesn't come from the fact that we can produce these forms. I had a client yesterday, or a potential client yesterday, talking about, well, I can just go online and get this. And I said, you sure can. You will get precisely the value you paid for it. And it's not because the form is bad or wrong. It's the expertise that we bring in knowing which form to use and which one's appropriate. And having been here, this is the first time this client's trying to put together his own estate plan. This is the first time that your client is trying to put together their own divorce, probably. And by not leaving it to people who've just, have done it that one time, we've done it multiple times. We're able to bring options to the table that they haven't seen before or even considered.
Exactly. And that's what people want to and are willing to pay for. That expertise, that applying the facts to the law, to looking for loopholes that might save them some money in taxes and keep them financially safe. Those are the things that people want to pay for. And the bottom line is that if they don't buy a product or service from us, they are out there Googling the information, and they will find it. It will probably be wrong.
Right.
It will probably be crap. But they will think they have found it and apply it. And that's not what we want for consumers either.
No.
So ultimately, they're going to be looking for a DIY type service or a do it for you service that's going to incorporate lawyers, but not have lawyers the focus of their case. And that's our challenge. is how do we craft a product that actually works for most people, that brings the cost down, and that makes us some really good money.
Right, because it's with the market shifting, people are going to be paying less, and there's always been the threat of the lower cost option. It's how do we make ourselves lower cost but still profitable? Or just the top line dollar. Sure, you're not going to get the $75,000 divorce week in and week out, but if you can get the 1500s where you're just taking care of half hour phone call 10 times a week or whatever it is, it shifts how the market works for you, but it doesn't mean it can't still be profitable for you and work for clients.
Oh, yeah, in a major way. Because when you think about it, the vast majority of the service is done by non-lawyers in a situation like mine. And the vast majority of their payment goes to an application that's already built. And so that's purely passive income. So, lawyers, especially if you're not doing the lawyering yourself, are never going to be cheap, nor do I think that they should be. But if people are just paying for them when they need them, then you can make plenty of money. And the other piece is just a numbers game. Maybe you had 20 to 30 clients a month, depending on the area of law that you work in. Sorry, not a month, but like at a time. And in this case, we have 50 to 60, sometimes more a month. With the vast majority of them, we're not even speaking to more than once, if that, a month. So it's totally doable. It's just a matter of like wrapping your head around it and also understanding that it doesn't happen overnight. It's been a good 2.5 years to where we're making serious money and are able to expand and take the model in different places. But it is totally doable. And, one thing that I always encourage people to do is you can always test something. You can be lawyering and test a course or test a video on YouTube or test a download through a marketing funnel. There's lots of ways to test the interest, and that's a great place to start.
Right. As risk-averse pessimists, lawyers love to make the perfect the enemy of the good. It seems like every firm I'd ever been at, and most of the lawyers we talk to, oh, well, this will never work because we'll make one mistake and then our licenses get pulled. And the reality is, we've all made mistakes of varying quality and caliber, and we're all still here. Most clients understand that we're humans too. There's a certain amount of, yes, you better get certain things right, but a misspelling or something slightly out of date, it varies by practice area, but for the most part, people aren't going to hold us to the fire for those minor things. So ultimately, what we're going to have to do is, and I know this is hard for lawyers, take risks and be willing to be wrong.
Right.
Because what I also heard was you iterated on it. The product you have now isn't what you started with. I mean, just in terms of what you started with, how much is still there from the beginning?
A lot of it is still there. A lot of it. What we did more is scale back what we had. We were just offering way too much. So in addition to being willing to fail, we need to be willing to let go of being a perfectionist. And that is really hard for lawyers. And what I've learned too, it's really hard for paralegals. Paralegals too. They've really struggled with that. They'll say to me, but they didn't attach their third bank statement. Well, ultimately, they've been told they have to attach it. And if they don't, that's on them. Like that there's, so there is certainly this, we want to be perfect. So I offered every possible option and told them every possible thing that could go wrong. And guess what? No one bought because everybody was overwhelmed with decision paralysis and overwhelmed with the amount of information. So I had to hone what the product is and who it's for. Initially, you might have even seen this in my marketing. No matter who you are, what kind of divorce you have, you can use Hello Divorce to do your forms. Well, that doesn't work.
Right.
It really doesn't work. If you have a really messy, awful divorce, you don't want to use a computer to do your forms. You want a lawyer with incredible expertise to do them for or with you. So I was afraid that if I really honed down on the type of consumer that we wanted to target, that there'd be a lot less people in the market available to purchase our services. But I mean, it's the same thing with law firm marketing, right? If you target a certain type of client avatar, you see less leads, but a lot more good ones. So that's been probably the biggest thing we've done, is really just take all that information we had and condense it and make it easier to digest.
Right. So it's like specializing in law. You just pick the one thing you're going to be really good at and make that work for you, your employees, and the clients. And then once you've got that one thing that works, you can branch back out. So even though you, Erin, can handle probably just about any kind of divorce, the product had to start small, like all of us did when we got out of law school. You only got to do a few things that you were trusted with, and probably not, we got better at it over time, but that allowed you, once you had the Hello Divorce product, the Divorce Navigator working, then you could build it back up and expand to more options for people.
Right. That's exactly it.
Perfect. I'm glad I got it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we'll ever be reaching the highly, highly contested divorce. That's just not where I enjoy professionally being anymore. And B, I'm not sure that I could design a product that really meets that need. I think it's possible, but it wouldn't be something that I would design. I'm more interested in changing the conversation around divorce, period, and helping people that would ordinarily have a divorce with conflict, making that a lot more amicable. That's my sweet spot. And that's what people like. No one wants a messy, expensive, complicated divorce. So if I can help people that thought they were going to have to spend the average cost of, at least in California, $26,300 per person, only spend $1,500 usually per couple, then that's where I want to be. It's a lot more fun.
That's right. And the people who do want the messier divorce, and it's not even that they want it, it's they have the assets to support it. They probably aren't going to trust a computer anyway. And I just know from my own clients, the higher net worth you go, they've got a team of advisors who are helping them with everything else anyway. And the thought that you would put that financial empire to the risk of a computer just wouldn't work. No, none of those other advisors would let them get too seriously down the line on that. And that's okay.
True.
I mean, it allows us as lawyers to be there for the cases where our time is more justified.
That's absolutely true. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in other states. In California, our net worth of each client is trending high because everybody's property is worth a lot in the big cities. And so I think sometimes we'll see a couple with $800,000 in equity in their home, but nothing else, which is fine, but that's where all of their wealth is. And they are perfectly happy using Hello Divorce. Sometimes we have them work with a certified divorce financial analyst or a co-parenting coordinator, pretty much any professional that works well with divorcees that's not a lawyer, because they're going to be less expensive and more focused on the specific problem.
So when you bring up divorce financial advisors, I have worked with a few of them, and it makes me think, where are you finding most of your traffic for the product coming from? Is it from those other non-lawyer divorce specialists? Is it people just Googling, how can I do this divorce by myself? Where's most of it coming from?
Yeah, organic SEO, baby. We've just mastered it very quickly. It's the one area that I'm really proud of. You had people on our coronavirus divorce blogs, like 12, 14,000 very, very early on, even though we've just been in California up until this point. So things are going to be different in other states, but we at least have a general strategy for how we did it in California, and we hope to take that to other states, iterate on it a little bit, but work it. That's the majority. We spend $500 to $1,000 a month in advertising, Google AdWords, so not very much at all.
That's almost a rounding error for almost any business.
Right. Word of mouth from these non-lawyer and lawyer professionals is certainly helpful, but it's not the vast majority of where we're getting our cases. And then, of course, social media, Instagram of all places, and Pinterest
Really?
has been kind of our secret weapon.
Really? People, is it that you have, well, what does your Pinterest board look like?
So first of all, the handle is @HelloDivorce for future reference, not for your divorce, but if anybody wants to check it out. It's not fancy at all. We put up pins on, different freemiums, different content products that we offer. We put in blogs about getting through divorce, quotes that people might resonate with, and, that type of content. But it's like a huge place where people go for divorce related and co-parenting related advice.
Really?
Pinterest. It's insane. Now, it's primarily going to attract women, but remember, over 70% of divorces are filed by women. So I want to target the women that are thinking about filing. They also wait on average 3 to 5 years to file their divorce after they first think about it. So it could be a very long sales cycle, and I want them to see me a lot of times so that when and if they do decide to divorce, or their friend decides to divorce, they say to themselves, Hello Divorce has been with me since day one. They've offered me these great resources, and now I want to try them.
Right. And again, you're sharing your expertise, showing that you know what you're talking about long before they need you, and that's getting them in the door.
Yes.
Showing, it makes it easier whether they use Hello Divorce specifically or they do need the bigger, full-fledged legal representation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes. It's interesting that the sales cycle was much longer when we first started, and now people know a lot more often, when they need a divorce to come to us. But the first set of people that purchased, it was 6 to 8 months of them getting emails and, retargeting them and so on and so forth before they purchased.
Excellent. See, we're running out of time. Erin, where can we find you other than Pinterest and Instagram, where else can we find you online?
Well, I'm across the board @HelloDivorce. So, and I manage my own social media accounts. So you can find me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and whatever else is out there. Erin Levine on LinkedIn. And of course, my web address is hellodivorce.com.
Erin, thanks so much for being with us today.
This was really fun. Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening. You can find more info on us and get your free white paper on client service at 5starcounsel.com. You can get in touch with me at john@5starcounsel.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found and leave us a review wherever you can.